Daredevil Born Again returns for a second season, having moved beyond the baggage of the big off-screen turbulence it faced in its first year. Whereas that season had a massive creative overhaul midway through production, with a new team brought in to both shoot new material and yet still incorporate much of what was initially shot, Season 2 was guided start to finish by that second team. This includes showrunner Dario Scardapane, with directors Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson also returning for the first 2 episodes. The result is a season that definitely feels less clunky and isn't as sometimes oddly structured as Season 1. Yet the impressive thing about Season 1 is how well it still worked, despite its bizarre Frankensteined nature. Season 2 has plenty more to satisfy Daredevil fans, and it does feel more focused, although there are some elements that still aren't quite as impactful. I'm Eric Goldman, and this is my review of Daredevil Born Again, Season 2.
As we speak, our enemies are assembling.
Season 1 ended with Mayor Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, going full scorched earth, declaring martial law in New York City while officially making all vigilante activity completely illegal.
Effective immediately, all vigilante activity is illegal.
And Season 2's opening feels like it's stepping off the gas a bit in this regard. And though this is partially by design, underlining how many of the populace are disturbingly okay with Fisk's approach, it also feels like a bit of a cop-out. It's not as egregious as, say, Stranger Things' take back on the consequences of the Earth literally splitting open at the end of one season, but it still feels less intense than what was hinted at.
Never forget.
In general, Born Again Season 2 gets off to a slow start, with its weakest episodes kicking off the season. That being said, this is still a very solid series that is centered on a continually engaging hero, and rejoice, Daredevil fans, because in the 5 combined seasons of both Daredevil and now Daredevil Born Again, this is only the second time, along with Season 2 of the Netflix series, where the title character is thankfully using his full, horned costume persona right from the start, and he's not either in the midst of a slow build towards the costume, or Matt Murdock having quit being Daredevil again. And Charlie Cox continues to expertly embody the character, his gravitas, and his physicality. The action scenes on this show still don't quite reach the intensity of the Netflix series, which felt so rough and tumble, but we get some awesome Daredevil ass-kicking by the end of the first hour, and on balance, the action this season is fast-paced and thrilling. There is more mileage than ever gotten from the use of Daredevil's Trick Billy Club and how he utilizes it in battle, which includes a couple of very fun, almost Sam Raimi-type shots, where we're essentially seeing the POV of this inanimate club as it flies through the air, ready to slam into a bad guy's skull in a satisfying manner. After sitting out most of Season 1, Karen Page is much more central to the story this time out, and it's great to see Deborah Ann Woll and Charlie Cox play off each other again, and the season has some very heated scenes where Matt and Karen debate his refusal to ever kill his enemies, after he very nearly did just that with Bullseye in Season 1, and whether that's the right call or not right now, given the stakes they find themselves in. And speaking of Bullseye, he is the MVP and the standout of Season 2 in a lot of ways. The trailers have hinted at the potential for some sort of cooperation between Bullseye and Daredevil, but suffice to say, it's more complicated than that, and the fact that this guy killed Foggy Nelson, not to mention a lot of other people, is not swept under the rug. But of course, being a despicable fictional killer and villain does not stop you from being a wonderful fictional character, and Bullseye is an especially electric presence this season, with Wilson Bethel doing a fantastic job of showing the character's very eccentric perspective. And when Bullseye unleashes with his turns any object into a deadly weapon abilities, particularly when it's against someone who's not an innocent, it is inarguably thrilling. The rest of the supporting cast is a mixed bag in terms of how well they are utilized. The end of Season 1 did begin to rectify the sketchy nature of some of Born Again's newly introduced characters, and that does continue here to some extent, with Kirsten McDuffie and Bebe Urich given more to do. And Fisk's inner circle of Buck Cashman, Sheila Rivera, and Daniel Blake have some strong material, as they must continue to navigate how much they're willing to go along with the whims of their amoral boss. But then you have a character like Heather Glenn who still feels very out of place on the series. She didn't fit in well as a love interest for Matt, and now she's working for Fisk with a subplot about her processing what she went through in Season 1, but that doesn't really gel either. And though she has a lot more screen time this season, the niece of the late White Tiger, Angela Del Toro, is an example of a character who's mostly surface level and given a pretty basic, I stand up for what my uncle believed in persona. There are several characters who make much more of an impact, though they aren't in as many episodes as one might hope. This includes a couple of Matt's fellow vigilantes, Jack Duquesne, aka Swordsman, and of course the highly anticipated return of Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones. They keep us waiting quite a while to get to Jessica, and it does feel like even more could be done with her, but it is still so gratifying to have her back in this universe, with Ritter as effortlessly witty as ever in this role, while providing a different kind of energy for Matt to interact with.
I hope you can walk because I'm not carrying you.
Tony Dalton, meanwhile, is a blast as Jack, though he too feels like someone itching for more screen time. And also adding his trademark, oh-so-appealing offbeat energy is Matthew Lillard, who pops in throughout Season 2 as the mysterious Mr. Charles, who has some notable business connections to the Fisks. Another highlight of Season 2 is more of the fascinating interplay between Fisk and his wife Vanessa, with Vincent D'Onofrio and Ailette Zahur once more playing wonderfully off each other, as we see how Vanessa continues to be the one person who the otherwise terrifying, combustive Fisk truly loves. The allegorical use of Fisk and his administration as a parallel to modern-day American politics continues to loom large in Born Again, with Fisk's anti-vigilante task force even more directly serving as a pretty obvious substitute for ICE in terms of the unchecked damage and the heartbreak they are inflicting upon its citizens. It might not be subtle, but it very much feels in the spirit of classic Marvel Comics, where its superhero universe reflects very real-life conflicts in modern society. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 has some undeniably exciting and satisfying moments as it concludes, albeit intermixed with a couple of beats that feel like they cut some corners dramatically. But its very best material is actually around the middle of its 8-episode season, including an especially strong and involving episode full of flashbacks that are set near the start of the original Netflix Daredevil series. As we intercut between the past and the present, there are clever changes to the visual style to match how that previous series looked, including altering the aspect ratio. And beyond that, Born Again Season 2 embraces story elements and characters from the old days, gifting longtime fans with some appreciated callbacks.
Can you stop him?
Not alone.
I'm giving Daredevil Born Again Season 2 a 7. It's a good show that offers a more focused story than Season 1, as Daredevil and his allies attempt to push back against Mayor Fisk's reign of terror. Starting with Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, the core characters remain compelling, with both Karen Page and Bullseye getting to step up in a big way this season. At the same time, it feels like there are simply too many characters. A few that you'd like to see more of are underutilized, while some supporting players and subplots feel extraneous or surface level, with some cheesier dialogue, sometimes butting heads, with far more strongly written interactions. But at the end of the day, it sure feels good to once more see Matt Murdock put on that costume and go toe-to-toe with a bunch of guys who are very much asking for trouble.
Hey everybody, that's IGN's review of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Here to chat a little bit more about it, our chief Hell's Kitchen correspondent, reviewer Eric Goldman. Eric, how's it going, man?
It's going well. It's going for you, Clint.
It's going all right. So first things first, thank you for doing a review of Season 2 here. But the first question I got for you, how big a Daredevil guy are you?
I'm a pretty damn big Daredevil guy. I've been reading Marvel Comics my whole life, and Daredevil was certainly a favorite. Not to date myself, but we're going back quite a while here. And so he's a character I've loved. I love the original Born Again miniseries that this season was not about. But there's a lot of classic Daredevil stories. So I've been really happy with Charlie Cox playing this character the whole time, and certainly happy that he's back in our lives as this character.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to the Netflix series too, like, I mean, this is a series that I think, sort of rightfully so, has been one of the stronger sort of presences in terms of like the small screen MCU, right?
I think absolutely. I think it really speaks to it that, there was such a murkiness about all of the TV shows that were made before Feige and Marvel Studios took over TV, and if they were ever going to acknowledge all that, the fact that they decided, you know what, Daredevil and Kingpin, they kind of nailed. We're going to bring back those actors first. They weren't the only ones, but the fact that they kind of got to be back first, I think really is a testament to what they did, and the fact that they understood that people were like, this is it, you got it right. Even with, some of the lows, like I know some people weren't so big on Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix, although I think it's better than some people give it credit for. They were always such great casting. The versions of the characters are so good. I think they've always been a standout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting too. Like, it's always interesting to see what lessons studios and creators learn from successes, right? Like and this being an instance of them sort of doubling down on the right things, because it's like Daredevil and Charlie Cox and Matt Murdock, and then D'Onofrio as Kingpin. Like, those are great. You did it. So let's do more. Like, it's good to see that. But one of the things that you did mention in your review is that the series did feel a little bit crowded. You know, and at this point, you know, we're 5 seasons in it, because we can go back to the Netflix thing. We're 5 seasons into Daredevil, and it exists in a world shared with, at minimum, all the Disney Plus shows and sort of some of the Netflix shows. And so, you know, the Swordsman is showing up, you know, which I love Swordsman, but is the scale of the MCU, does it start to get in the way of a show like this at this point?
I actually don't think it's the scale of the MCU as much as, you know, it's so funny. I don't want to go too far down rehashing what happened with season 1, but I think it's important to note with the overcrowding issue, a lot of it has to do with the weird way season 1 was made, which, trying to say it succinctly, the fact that they started to make it with the one creative team, and they weren't going to count the continuity of the old show. It's like they liked Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, brought them back, but they weren't really going to count what happened before, and gave them an entirely new supporting cast. But then they decided to overhaul it, but keep material they shot. So I think it was very strange what they did, because that meant they had all these characters they'd already established in the new version, but they wanted to bring back in Karen and Bullseye and all these people that weren't going to be in it originally. I think this season suffers a little bit, even as much as I still like it a lot, because they're juggling both the characters from season 1 that might never have been there if this creative team were running it from the get-go, and more people from the original Netflix series. So I think that's where there's a bit of a fighting for screen time element sometimes.
Daredevil as a conduit for hallway fights.
Oh, yes.
How'd we do?
It's interesting because, I don't think they've been able to quite reach that high of the Netflix series, but I think they do their own thing in a fun way. And I know I mentioned this in my review, but this is, if you're into Billy Club action, which is a very specific thing to say, they do a lot of fun stuff here this season with the fact that he can throw that Billy Club. And it's like Captain America's shield. Would it work in real life? Probably not, but it certainly works for Daredevil. So I definitely enjoyed what they do with that Billy Club and how it kind of plays into the battles. I don't think we get a true great hallway fight, I will say, but there's still definitely some enjoyable mayhem along the way.
Listen, I am here for physics-defying weapons. That's totally fine. But that is going to do it for us. So thanks again, Eric, for reviewing Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. And thank you for watching. For more Daredevil, more Marvel, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.